Marriage was not a human invention. Marriage was created by God himself. And it begins all the way back in the first chapter of Genesis. God is the one who instituted marriage and created it. God had created man in his image. In the divine image, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, saying, "Be fertile and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it." And of course, this is the first account of that primeval history of the creation of man and woman in the world. And of course, in the book of Genesis, there's that second account. Right after the first one, we go right to the second one. So the Lord God cast a deep sleep on the man, that is Adam. And while he was asleep, he took out one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. The Lord God then built up into a woman the rib that he had taken from the man. When he brought her to the man said, "This one at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one shall be called woman. For out of her man this one has been taken." That is why a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife, and the two of them become one body, or another translation would be one flesh. God is the one who instituted marriage between one man and one woman. A man leaves his parents, he clings to his wife, and the two of them, become one flesh for life. So the institution of marriage existed before, at times during, and after every government and every society. The institution of marriage comes before any government in the world says that a marriage is what a marriage is. And so no matter what any other government may say, or society, or regime, whatever they may call marriage, it is what God said it was, and it cannot be changed. And it will be this way all the way until the end of time. Unchangeable. And so, what is marriage? Fundamental question. In the news all the time, I keep hearing it redefined, changed by governments who think they have the authority and the right to go ahead and change what God started. For whatever reason, or where they think they got the power to do this, I don't know. It sounds more like blindness and pride and arrogance to me to tell God that now we're going to change what you created on our own. The matrimonial covenant by which a man and a woman establish between themselves a partnership of the whole of life is by its nature ordered toward the good of spouses and the procreation and education of offspring. This covenant between baptized persons has been raised by Christ the Lord to the dignity of a sacrament. And so God established marriage in the book of Genesis, and then Jesus, the Son of God, reiterates this and raises it to a sacrament in the New Testament. Now I'm going to read this here, and I don't know how you can take it any other way other than what the words say. From the book of Matthew. He said in reply, this is Jesus speaking now, "Have you not read that from the beginning the Creator, with a capital C, made them male and female, and said, 'For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, no human being must separate.'" Those are the words of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And so how can someone then especially one who calls himself or herself a Christian, say that it means any other thing than what it says, if these are Jesus' words. And so we've already discussed what a marriage is. A marriage, the matrimonial covenant. That is where a man and a woman establish between themselves a partnership of the whole of life. And it's ordered to the good of the spouses and the procreation and education of offspring. God is the author of marriage. And that cannot change, no matter what any government or institution says otherwise. Now, what is a family? A man and a woman united in marriage, together with their children, form a family. This institution, that is, a family, is prior to any recognition by public authority, which has an obligation. That is, the public authority has an obligation to recognize a family for what a family is and what marriage is for what it is. It should be considered the normal reference point by which the different forms of family relationships are to be evaluated. And so, marriage is between one man and one woman. A marriage is not between a man and a man. It is not between a woman and a woman. It is impossible. That is not marriage, even if the law says it is. A family is a man and a woman, one man and one woman united in marriage together with their children. That is what a family is. It cannot change, even if the government says that it is otherwise. It is not two women who adopt a little child. It's one man and one woman. And their children, they form a family. The family is the original cell of social life. And so as such, you and I, including our government, has a responsibility to defend it, to protect it, to uphold it, and to make sure that family life is healthy in its own society, or otherwise that society will fall. Now, John Paul II, blessed, who will be canonized a saint early in spring next year, taught us that every institution, including the family and marriage, those are institutions, is inspired, at least implicitly, by a vision of humanity and humanity's destiny, from which it derives the point of reference for its judgment, its hierarchy of values, its line of conduct. Most societies have formed their institutions in the recognition of a certain preeminence of man over things. Only the divinely revealed religion has clearly recognized man's origin and destiny in God the Creator and Redeemer. Now listen to what he says about this. He says, societies that do not recognize this vision, that is, that God is the creator and the author of marriage and family life, those societies that don't recognize this vision, or if they reject it in the name of their independence from God, are brought to seek their criteria and goal in themselves, or to borrow them from some ideology. So what he's saying is hey, if you're in a society and you suck God out of society, you're not just going to create marriage and family life out of random. You're going to base it, the goals of society, you're going to base marriage and family life on some ideology. Since they do not admit that one can defend an objective criterion of good and evil, sound familiar? They arrogate to themselves an explicit or implicit totalitarian power over man and his destiny, as history shows. And so, you know what? After the fall, after God told Adam and Eve that you are man and wife, that you are a family, you are to raise children, to be fruitful and multiply, things didn't always go so good, and they haven't gone so good ever since then. And different societies throughout different times in history have tried to experiment with what marriage and family life is all about. They tried to redefine it. One of the most telling stories is what happened about 2000 BC. Do you remember Abraham and Lot? Do you remember the city of Sodom and Gomorrah? Now, what was going on in Sodom that God had to destroy it? They were certainly not trying to sell Kool-Aid in the city of town and somehow got arrested and God decided to destroy the city. What was going on that God had to destroy it? Men were getting together and they were committing indecent acts between themselves, and it became rampant. It became a lifestyle in the city of Sodom. And it's unbelievable that if you were a visitor passing through the city, you had to be careful that you were going to get attacked and violated by the men of the city. And so God destroyed it. This has been tried also throughout history. You can go into the history books and look at it, that every society that has attempted to try to redefine marriage and family life has either been destroyed by God or God has permitted that society to destroy itself. And of course, we know that that is where we are today, when we actually have to go back and define what marriage is and what family life is, the basic building blocks of society. That means we've come a long way and we are living implicitly or explicitly in a totalitarian state. Pope Paul VI predicted it. John Paul II clarified it and pointed it out. It's right here in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And so, my brothers and sisters, you and I, we must look at the Holy Family. We have to look at the institution of marriage and family and fight for what is right. And God will help us. In the meantime, He may allow us to destroy ourselves before that point. And if we continue on, Western civilization continues on redefining what marriage and family life is, it will destroy itself. History repeats itself. And unfortunately, we live in an age of narcissism, pride, and arrogance, where people will not listen to reason, they will not listen to the truth. They will form what they believe marriage and family should be like, and it's not based on what God has designed. And we recall especially this telling phrase from the Second Vatican Council, that the well-being of the individual person and of both human and Christian society is closely bound up with the healthy state of conjugal and family life. So in other words, if you want to measure the health of a society, go and measure the health of its families. And it will tell you where we're at. And right now, I don't know how to say it. We're running a high temperature, a low temperature, near death, but we're ill. Our families, for the most part, are ill, by and large. And those families who try to do what's right and live by God's designs are often persecuted for that, either directly or indirectly. And it's rather unfortunate. And so I encourage all of you families who are trying to do what's right, even though it's difficult, to continue on and don't stop. That God is happy with your sacrifices. He's happy with everything you have to go through to do what is right. And He will bless you for that. And so today, finally, we look to the Holy Family for guidance and imitation of how to practice virtue. And so, as you know, we are called to practice virtue, and we wish to practice virtue so that we reach the pinnacle of the virtue of charity. Love of God with my whole heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love of my neighbor out of my love for God. You and we are called to practice then the virtues of faith, hope, and charity, the three theological virtues. We are also called to practice heroic virtue. That is also with the virtues of prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. Those are the basic 7. And of course, the foundation for all of it is that we have to practice the virtue of humility. We're called to practice it heroically, all of us, and God will give us the grace to do it, especially in these times. And in these times, we have a lot of opportunity to practice them too.